Hey team, and welcome back to another video in our Astrological Magical Elections video series. Today we are going to talk about some magical electional opportunities that we are going to have available from our Sagittarius New Moon on December 12th until our Capricorn New Moon on January 10th. That's right, I have decided that we are going to combine our new and our full moon videos into just one monthly video. There are probably going to be some months where I'm going to hate that, and that will be the worst decision I have ever made, but we're just going to have fun with it for now. And that'll leave me with an opening to do something else on the full moon. So we'll see how that all goes for a little bit. But we do have some magical opportunities coming to us this month, and it's great to start to see some sort of signs of life in the universe when it comes to having elections to make talismans with. It's been a while where we haven't really seen a whole lot coming our way. And we're starting to see that open up a bit more. And I do know that in January, things get a lot better. There are a few election opportunities in January that I have my eye on that I'm excited to share with you when we get there. But for now, let's go ahead and dive on in. So our first electional opportunity is going to be for the 28th Lunar Mansion. And the 28th Lunar Mansion is a really fun one. Traditionally, it is a mansion that was used for fishing. The texts tell us that talismans for the 28th mansion are used to gather fish in one place to make them easy for fishermen to scoop into their nets. And that's fine. You can absolutely use the 28th mansion if you are into like sports fishing or fishing as a hobby. Maybe not fishing with a PH. That might not be so helpful. This might not be so helpful for that. Please don't. So you can absolutely use the 28th mansion for its sort of traditional intended purposes for fishing if you are into fishing, whether for sports and competition or just as like a relaxing hobby. It could be a great talisman to utilize for that. That's what it was made for. But I often associate talismans that are used for these sorts of purposes, like for hunting and fishing and farming and things like that, as sort of like metaphors for resources and finance. And so for the 28th Lunar Mansion specifically, I think of it as opportunities, as being able to gather up and pick and choose between opportunities like one would, fish gathered in a particular area. They're just in a pond or like a little pool of possibilities, and you pick which one that you prefer. So I really like the 28th Lunar Mansion, especially for people who are looking for ways to sort of diversify their income stream. Whether that's trying to pick up a new way to make money, or for individuals who are involved in like client-based work or like project-based work, trying to get more projects or more clients lined up so that they have more work to do. I think the 28th Lunar Mansion is really good for those kinds of situations. So initially I had written this one down for the North American version as December 19th at 7:27 with a 27-degree Sagittarius in it, but that is ridiculous. That can't work because then Jupiter is the ruler of the first house and he's retrograde. So instead, we're going to do December 19th at 7:42, which is going to give us an early Capricorn ascendant. So looking at our election, we can see we've got the moon in the 28th mansion here. Oh, that's neat. I didn't realize she was conjoined the part of fortune. Here in the third house, which is her house of joy, and conjoined the part of fortune, which I think is a neat, though unintended configuration here. The ruler of the first house is going to be Saturn here in Pisces, who's not who's well past the square to Saturn and not having any issues with that. At this time, the moon is applying the square to the sun, and I always really enjoy sun-moon squares. Not sun-moon squares. That's a lie. I do not always enjoy sun-moon squares. I enjoy sun-moon aspects, of which the square is one, but it's one I like one of the least, I guess. But I like sun-moon connections, which is the word I was looking for. In any sort of Lunar Mansion talisman, I feel like they make a great pair in working with kind of like in almost any situation. The 28th Lunar Mansion is probably not one where I'm like, yes, that's it, sun moon connection. That's exactly what you need. I think that if we're talking about like the sun and what it brings to the table, the sun is about like clarity, vision, and understanding a lot of the times. And so I think the sun can be very helpful in this instance to help you choose between like the right opportunity to get you where you kind of want to be, rather than just like helping you get something and like being in that situation where you feel like you need to take everything that comes your way. The sun, I think, helps you be a lot more discerning about like the reality of that situation, like the outcome of these different opportunities and which one more suits your goals, like which one can help you get further in your own goals or helps you like accomplish something or do something that you wanted to do that might be like unique or special. So in that instance, I think the sun can be a very helpful connection, but the sun wouldn't necessarily be one that I would rank up like super highly with the 28th lunar mansion. That's really something I would think more like Jupiter or Venus and their sort of ability to create multiple things, or like more of something or better of something. But I can see the sun being useful for those reasons I discussed, just kind of like being able to pick, having more clarity and awareness of like what actually it is that you're signing up for and how or not that can be conducive to whatever it is that you want to accomplish with it. So that is our North American version. The Western European and North African version of the 28th lunar mansion chart takes place on December 19th at 1836. And here the focus has shifted from the moon in the third, like it was in the North American version, to the moon on the the moon on the midheaven in the 28th lunar mansion. It's no longer with the lot of fortune, which is fun because a lot of fortune is with the node, so it's dead to us at this point. But the moon will also serve as a ruler of the first house, and the moon is safe both from the difficult aspects of Saturn and Mars, far enough from the square of Saturn to not have to worry about, far enough from the conjunction of Saturn to no longer be a problem. And we are still seeing that square with the sun. In this chart, we're still hanging on to that sun connection, and so just kind of be mindful, like what I shared before, that the sun here may not be sort of our number one most desired connection for 28th lunar mansion talisman, but it does have some unique benefits that can be worth exploring if you're in a situation where that might help you out. So initially I had written this chart down for my Australian version of this chart, which was December 19th at around 1522. I guess I really enjoyed Jupiter here in the first house, and the ruler of the first house being Venus, while the moon is in the 28th lunar mansion. But what I'm noticing that I don't like is that the square to Mars is still pretty tight, 2 degrees. So I don't like that. Let's see if we can fix this to be something better than this. Let's see. I'm hoping that this was not my best option. And I wrote down something. Wait a second. 1522. No, that's right. Yeah. Okay. No, I just don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know how to read an election chart, guys. Okay, so let's see if we can fix this. What does it look like with the moon on the midheaven? Well, she's still only about 3 degrees away from Mars, and the ruler of the first house is Mercury retrograde, so we don't like that. Let's hop down to the moon in the third house. Saturn rules it. Moon's far enough from the butt. She is separated now from the square of the sun, so who does she apply to next? A square to Mercury. No, I don't like that. Okay, so unfortunately it does not look like there will be any 28th lunar mansion opportunity for Australia, but that's okay, because I'd actually forgotten to talk about what is actually the first electional opportunity that we have coming up in this month, and that is a 25th lunar mansion opportunity that is unique to Australia, which we can talk about instead, because I don't know how to read elections. So the 25th lunar mansion is one that is primarily associated with the health and well-being of plants, and it's much more agricultural in its powers and its sort of in the world that it expresses itself in. So it's much more like natural, nature-oriented talisman based on what we know about it from the texts. And so kind of, again, you can absolutely use it for gardening, which is something that I've done in the past to protect the health of particular plants that might be important to you for whatever reason. Especially useful for people who are involved in agriculture or in orchards. Orchids too, I guess. That's fine too. And so you can absolutely use it as it's kind of like its on label usage. Absolutely, you can. And I recommend that to a lot of people who are interested in using it that way. Another kind of more experimental option for it would be utilizing it in investments to help your investments grow. Because again, I usually use a metaphor of agriculture to money, because for so long, farming and agriculture was not only how you fed your own family, but how you could give and provide to other people, how you would sell excess crops, it was just what you did to make ends meet and feed your own family. So you could absolutely kind of extend this out to a more financial metaphor. And since the 28th lunar mansion the 25th lunar mansion, which is what we're talking about now, is much more focused on the growth and health of plants, I think it could also be very useful for the growth and health of finances, through investments, through retirement savings. We're thinking a little bit more long-term and long-term planning. So not some crypto get rich quick con scheme thing. I don't think the 25th Lunar Mansion is going to help you with that. Though maybe test it, let me know. But definitely focus more on like long-term finances, long-term assets, and the growth of those. And I think the 25th Lunar Mansion will definitely get you there. So our opportunity for this for the Australian continent, this is something that's only available in Australia, is going to be December 17th at 9:06 a.m. And here we're going to have the moon in the 25th Lunar Mansion in the middle of Aquarius, and she's going to be applying this sextile to the sun. And now the sun is another, and like here, I would like the sun. I do like the sun here, whereas I didn't really much care for it very much in the 28th Lunar Mansion election opportunity. When it comes to growth and, you know, bringing things up, the sun is obviously very helpful, just because this, like, I don't know if you know this, but like the plants need sunlight to grow, like that. Shocker. So just kind of like carrying that very real, like very concrete, very physical manifestation of this symbolism out. There's absolutely that, like the solar energy helps plants grow. So if you're using it for like the more agricultural basis, then this could be great. But I also don't hate it for the growth of finances, just because we're kind of extending it from that metaphor. Having the benefic planets, Jupiter and Venus, both really angular in the chart, I think is helpful, even though they're not what I would call doing hot. They're not doing hot. Venus is in Scorpio, which is not great, it's not our favorite. And then Jupiter in Taurus is one of my favorites, but retrograde is a little bit more impeded. But we do have a nice, very obvious benefic opposition on the midheaven and IC to kind of help make this a little bit more, give this more oomph. So I do really like this talisman. Our next electional opportunity is going to be for the first Lunar Mansion. And the first Lunar Mansion, especially in a waxing moon, is all about the creation and generation of energy and momentum, which can be especially helpful when we feel stuck or unsure of what to do next, or we find ourselves procrastinating a lot on a thing, or we have difficulty making a decision. The first Lunar Mansion is like, I got this. And can definitely give you that sort of like energy boost to help you do the things. So I really enjoy the first Lunar Mansion for those individuals who are struggling in those areas. What I don't like the first Lunar Mansion for, and what I try to stress to people, is that the first Lunar Mansion is not restful. That's its antithesis. And so I make that distinction because a lot of people in today's world are suffering from burnout. And that is the primary reason why they are feeling stuck, why they feel like they're languishing in a lot of things, and why they don't have like the energy and motivation to do things that they want to do or feel like that they ought to do or need to do. So the first Lunar Mansion can help you, give you that boost of energy that you need to kind of help you get motivated, to be invigorated, and to find that thing that makes you feel excited to do something, to make something or whatever. But it's not going to help you feel rested. It's not going to give you that core rest that you need to overcome symptoms of burnout. So for that, I would not recommend the first Lunar Mansion if you at all feel like you're actually suffering from burnout. That's just another thing. You need to seek help from that elsewhere, because it's not going to be found in the first Lunar Mansion. But for those who just feel like you need a quick pick-me-up, pep in your step, or just to kind of help you kind of dash through whatever feelings of malaise you might be feeling right now, the first Lunar Mansion can really help with that. So looking at our election for the North American continent, that time is going to be on December 20th at 8:52 a.m. And here we're going to have a mid-degrees Capricorn rising with the moon in the first Lunar Mansion here in the third house. And she's going to be applying this trine to Mars in Sagittarius. The moon is getting a little close to the node, and I usually try to avoid it. I tend to stay about 10 degrees away from it as much as I can. But if this is too close to the node for you, then that's totally fine. I definitely respect that. But I really enjoy the Mars trine in this. I feel like connections between the Mars and the Sun in first Lunar Mansions are the ones that we typically would want to, because these are both very energizing planets. And having this sort of like innate fire, that innate drive that represents, and being able to like enliven or enkindle, I guess might be the better word, that creative spark or that energetic spark within us is really what these two planets can do. Mars, I think, takes it a bit more extreme than the Sun, who I think has an easier time nurturing something. But Mars, but they both do the job that they need to do. It's just you need to be a little bit more careful about it with Mars, because it tends to be a bit like jump the gun kind of thing, especially in Sagittarius, which tends to be a little bit of a reckless sign. And I don't normally go like that like granular, I guess, into the symbolism in magical elections, because I feel like you have a lot of room to negotiate that with when you're making the talisman, but just kind of be aware that this is much more of like an energetic type of first lunar mansion than than it would be if it was like in a connection with Jupiter or like with Venus, which tend to be more, restful and laid back and not quite as like go-getter-y. For the Western Europe, Northern African version of the first lunar mansion, they're going to have theirs on December 20th at around 1 p.m. This is set for 1308. And here you have now the setup with the moon on the ascendant rather than in the third house like she was. And she's still maintaining that trine aspect with Mars. I forgot who he was, who now rules the first house and is far enough away from combustion for us to not have to worry about it, and far enough away from the square of Saturn to not worry about it. I don't know why I can't talk today. Normally, my speech issues is me like forgetting the word that I'm about to say, but right now it's just like me tripping over myself when I try to talk. I don't know what that's about. How caffeinated is this decaf chai latte? So we've gotten ourselves a little bit further away from the node than we were in the North American version, which I like. But like all in all, the setup is still the same. You still have that trine with Mars, which gives it that sort of kick that is unique and very much needed, or very much not needed. It's not needed. It's very much in the spirit of the first lunar mansion, what we're going to say. So we're definitely keeping that, and it's a good chart. Like I like that Mars now takes over sort of the first house. The other election had Saturn as a ruler of the first house, just a bit more sleepy. So I do appreciate this. And let me see. And so I initially wasn't going to share the Australian version of this or recommend it, just because the moon is much further away from the trine to Mars, but they're kind of all like seeing the North American and the Western Europe, North African versions back to back. They're kind of all far away from the trine of Mars. So we're going to go ahead and look at that one for, I didn't write it down. For Australia, let's see. I didn't write it down, so I have to kind of like remake it. Let's see. Oh, maybe it was not that problem. Oh, here we go. No, that's the other problem. Okay, so it's starting to come back to me. It's starting to come back to me why I didn't say it. So if we do this one with the moon in the mansion, if we do this one with the moon in the first mansion, she's applying the square to retrograde Mercury, which isn't going to help. That we can then put her in the 11th, where she's past it. And we'll have Venus as a ruler of the first house, and we'll have the trine to Mars. This one might work. Because then if we do the moon on the midheaven, which was my next idea, we would have to deal with Mercury retrograde as the ruler of the first house, which we're not doing. And then we have to wait all the way until the moon gets back into the third house. And, the first mansion only goes to 13 degrees of Aries. So, we're past it. We can't do that. So I would say that your only option for this in Australia would be with the moon in the 11th house. And you'd have to get it where you have to balance between probably something like this. So December 20th at 1621 for Australia. The moon in the first mansion, she's applying the trine to Mars. It's really far out. She's separated from the square to Mercury. We don't have to worry about that anymore getting in the way. The ruler of the first house is Venus in Scorpio. That's fine. Venus isn't afflicted by anybody. Taurus here, this mid-degree of Taurus isn't afflicted by Mars or Saturn. So it all works out fine. It's just that this is like a 14-degree stretch of space before the moon comes to that trine of Mars, and that might be just a little far. That was my big thing. It just feels like it's kind of far. So if that's not too far for you, here you go. If that is too far for you, yeah, I kind of feel that. So our next electional opportunity, we're going to jump ahead a bit because there's not a whole lot going on, and we're actually going to transition into the waning moon phase. So in the waxing moon, we're focused on elections that can give us things, that can help us augment or grow things, that can help us improve things. In the waning moon, we're looking at elections that can help us get rid of things, that can help us improve by negation or omission. And so that's what we're going to focus on here. And this is going to be an opportunity for the 12th Lunar Mansion, which is my favorite of the waning moon talismans. The 12th Lunar Mansion I like to utilize a lot for individuals who are struggling to let go of something that's holding them back, whether that's like grief or regret or fear. or like a bad habit or some sort of relationship or something like that, the 12th Lunar Mansion has a really nice kind of dissolving power that helps us move past some of these more difficult things that are holding on to us and keeping us from kind of like realizing our potential or doing things that make us happy. So the 12th Lunar Mansion is good, and everybody should have one. Everybody should have a 12th Lunar Mansion. Everybody should have a 12th Lunar Mansion talisman. So our and this is where we start to get tricky because of how we have to handle this one. But the North American version of this chart is going to take place on December 30th at 2052, and we're going to have the moon on the ascendant in the 12th Lunar Mansion in the first house. I mean, she's going to be applying this trine to Mars. And I like this trine with Mars. It's a very constructive way to use Mars here, where we have Mars like severing and separating and cutting and burning things up. And so you might as well turn that on something that needs to be cut or deserves to be cut. That's going to be something that's hurting you, or that's, making it difficult for you to live your life. So I definitely recommend that. Our issue, the sun is going to be here in as the ruler of the first house in Capricorn. I forgot what sign that was. And the moon is fine, except for we've got this like opposition with Saturn starting to form. So we don't want to go much further into this. We have a little bit of a buffer. We've got about like 9 degrees, which is good, a good distance here. And not only that, but we've got like the trine to Saturn that has to happen, and then the square to Venus first. And then we'll go into the opposition with Saturn. But there is definitely some room here for tension, which I don't hate exactly, just because knowing what the 12th Lunar Mansion does or is, and how it is this sort of like conflict between us and something negative that opposes us and holds us back, to where I feel like the opposition with Saturn here can be very appropriately symbolic, but at the same time, probably not something you want to like necessarily encapsulate in the thing that's supposed to help you overcome that. So something to keep in mind. Don't let this get much closer, if at all. Why can't I have this in the third house? Hold on. A new challenger has entered. Oh, yeah. Let's just do that. Okay, new plan. What's wrong with this? When does the 12th Lunar Mansion start? 21. Wait. Yes. Okay, new plan. Forget everything I just said. Give us some more space here. So we can get more space from the Saturn opposition by moving the election to 1652, where now we'll have Cancer rising. The moon still applies the trine to Mars, and now we have like 11 degrees separated between the moon and Saturn, bringing us a lot more into like a comfort space. So let's just do that instead. All right, thanks. Bye. So the Western Europe and North African version of the 12th Lunar Mansion talisman takes place on December 30th at 2019. And it's a very similar setup to the chart that we threw out before, except for we're probably not going to throw this one out. We have the moon in the 12th mansion on the ascendant. Oh, that's a very tiny line. Come back. Big line. On the there we go. Ooh, it's a big line. No, come back. Smaller line. There we go. We have the moon on the ascendant in the 12th Lunar Mansion. That's still really big. Like, that seems not right. What is happening? That looks normal to me. Okay. So we've got the moon in the first house on the ascendant here in the 12th Lunar Mansion. She's applying... Oh, no. Well, so I guess I can have a speech here. So I'm a little disheartened that the moon wasn't able to apply the trine to Mars, which I really do enjoy for this kind of talisman. Instead, she's applying the trine to retrograde Mercury. I never really recommend... no, you know what? I'm going to stick with it. I was going to get all fancy, but we're just going to stick with it. We're just going to do it. And now I understand. So, okay, so much is happening right now. You guys don't know. So, initially I was very confused because on my notes, I wrote that this had a Libra ascendant. And I was like, why would this have a Libra ascendant? That doesn't make any sense. Partly because the time I wrote does not actually equate to a Libra ascendant. So I was like, maybe I just accidentally wrote down Libra instead of Leo, because that makes sense. Like, that's something that I would do. But now seeing that the moon applies to the retrograde Mercury, I'm like, oh, obviously I saw that past Ryhan saw that and said, you know what, let's make it a Libra ascendant instead. And that's what I did. That's what we're going to do. Because I was going to get all fancy and say that, you know what, I don't mind retrograde Mercury here because it's about breaking things. It's about messing something up. And like retrograde Mercury can do that. It's all about that life. But then I realized that like, well, you know, we like what the real problem with the retrograde is that when the moon hands over the responsibility to the retrograde planet to like manifest its energy into the talisman, and it's like, okay, Mercury, this lunar mansion spirit, it has this job and you are going to help it accomplish it. That's kind of our relationship triangle here. Mercury's like, I got this, except for I'm retrograde, so nothing that I do is going to stick. So the retrograde here is just going to make you fall back into whatever bad thing it was that you're trying to have the 12th lunar mansion leave. Like, whatever you're trying to leave. Like, Mercury can break it down because he's retrograde, but then he'd be like, flumble the ball. And then it's like, oh, crap, now I'm smoking again. I don't know what happened, but suddenly I'm smoking again. And that's not what we're doing here. That is not what we're doing here. So, instead, we're going to give this the goddamn Libra ascendant that it deserves. Here we go. Was that so hard, Ryan, to do? Okay, so the time for the 12th lunar mansion talisman. Oh, is that a 0? No, that's not a 0. I thought, I don't know what's wrong with me. I quit. Okay, so the time for the 12th lunar mansion talisman in North Africa and Western Europe is going to be on December 31st at 19 minutes after midnight. So 12:19 a.m. And here in this election, we're going to have the moon in the 12th lunar mansion in the 11th house, and she's going to be applying the trine to Mars, not the sun. Ryan, calm yourself. The trine to Mars. Okay, I like the trine to Mars in a 12th lunar mansion talisman because I like Mars's ability to cut and separate and burn away things that, like, just things. Like, that's a cool power anyway, but especially when you can funnel that power into things that you're trying to get away from. That's what Mars can do. That's going to be something that is going to be very helpful, not retrograde Mercury. The ruler of these... Oh, no! This is not working out. Nothing here is working out with this. Why won't this work? I'm leaving all this in the final video because this is a mess. So... what's happened now? What could possibly happen now? Now I'm realizing Venus rules the first house. Venus is in Sagittarius, and she's square Saturn. No! Fucking why? Why is she square Saturn? So, let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can get the moon on the midheaven, if this will be any better. I should have just hit this trash can button. There we go. Okay, so the time for the 12th lunar mansion talisman in Western Europe, North Africa is going to be on December 31st at 3:44 in the morning, and I'm sticking to it this time. We're going to have the moon in the 12th mansion, trine that Mars. Mars is going to be the ruler of the first house. Mars is not afflicted by the sun. We're far enough away to not be combust. Not afflicted by Saturn. The ascendant's not afflicted by Saturn. The moon is getting close. We're going to watch out. We're not going further than this. We still have the trine to Mars and the square to Venus to hit before we have to get to the opposition of Saturn, but we're getting close to it, and we don't want that. So, stay away from that. But this is the time we're going to use, finally. What an ordeal, what an adventure this has been. I hope it's been an entertaining experience watching me go through it. And who said that astrology wasn't exciting? Certainly not. There is no 12th lunar mansion talisman for Australia. It doesn't quite line up right. And I was playing around with an alternative for a 14th lunar mansion talisman. And the 14th lunar mansion is a much more like intense 12th, like it's much more intense version of the 12th lunar mansion in my opinion. It's just like they do very similar things, but the 14th is much more like scary about it. With the moon there, she applied to a square with Mars, and I was like, let's fucking go. Like, let's just get it over with. And I was like, Ryan, that's crazy. You have a family. You can't do that anymore. Like, you can't just do talismans with squares of Mars. Like, that's crazy. Leave that to some crazy person on the internet to sell a talisman with it for like $5,000. Leave it to them. You're a respectable family man now. So we didn't do that. We're not going to do that. Sorry, Australia. That's what, unless you just want to watch everything burn, in which case go find that election. So our final electional opportunity for our Sagittarius New Moon is going to be for the 20th Lunar Mansion. So the 20th Lunar Mansion is one that I really enjoy using when it comes to like goal setting, like making goals and attaining goals and completing like objectives to get to those goals. It's a very handy talisman for that kind of thing. So especially, this is where we get into that conversation about like moon phase and the appropriateness of it. The 20th Lunar Mansion in the waxing moon is like supremely powerful when it comes to being able to do that stuff that I talked about, like make plans, come up with plans, long-term planning and success thereof. In the waning moon phase, we can do that we can do the same thing, but it's just that our goal has to be to get rid of something or to lose something, because we're in that like diminishing, the getting rid of energy. And if our goal is to like acquire something, which would be kind of how we typically think about the 20th Lunar Mansion, then it's not going to succeed. But if our goal is to be rid of something, whether that's, to lose weight, to quit smoking, in many ways it can overlap or dovetail with the 12th Lunar Mansion and its powers. Or quit drinking, or, just to lose something, to help clean out like a house or like the garage or just whatever. Then the 20th Lunar Mansion can be very helpful. It's just you have to kind of phrase your goal as that you're trying to get rid of something and, be creative, I guess, however you want to handle that. But the election for the North American version is going to take place on January 8th at 9:52 a.m. We're going to have the moon in the 20th Lunar Mansion, and she's going to be applying this conjunction with Venus. Excuse me. She's no longer going to be square Saturn. Saturn is going to be the ruler of the first house, and it's got like this nice little sextile. With Mars, and just all in all, it's a pretty safe chart. It's a little bit benefic. I will admit that it's a little bit benefic in that all the 20th Lunar Mansion charts we're going to share are going to hinge upon this Moon Venus conjunction. And this is a conversation that I have a lot when it comes to these talismans that are about like getting rid of something or about diminishing something. The moon's aspect with the moon's next aspect with a planet is very important in setting the tone for what that looks like. So benefics can make the transition easier, but maybe like pull it out, like stretch it out a little bit more. Whereas malefic connections can make the transition more jarring, but be over with much more quickly. So it really just depends on kind of what your approach to things are, like your personality, your own comfort level, whether you like sort of like the peel it off like slowly so you get used to it, or if you just rather rip it off and be done with it and kind of have to deal with all that. That's completely up to you. So this is more of like a long-term kind of a thing, where we're going to see that like it's not something that's just going to be over with, even though it's in like Sagittarius. Oh, Venus is going to make sure that we have an easier time letting go. Which means like more gradual baby steps than if it was like a Mars kind of thing. Looking back over the Western Europe and North African version of the 20th Lunar Mansion chart, I don't think I'm comfortable with it. That time is January 8th at 10:12. And the reason why is because I don't like that the moon is so close to the square of Saturn. It's only like 3 degrees apart. And that's a little bit more difficult to overlook, even though we are applying to that conjunction with Venus. So I really don't think I like this. So we're going to throw it in the trash real fast. Just poof. And then, finally, the 20th Lunar Mansion chart for Australia is going to take place on January 9th at 2:36 in the morning. And here we're going to have the moon in the 20th Mansion, applying that conjunction with Venus. A really nice, really beautiful conjunction here. The ruler of the first house is going to be Jupiter, who is no longer retrograde, thank fucking God, which is going to open up a lot more possibilities to us coming in January. And yeah, that's going to be just Jupiter is not afflicted by Mars or Saturn. It's not combust. The ascendant degree is not afflicted by Mars or Saturn. Just a really nice connection with the moon and Venus here that hopefully we'll be able to utilize for something positive, even though we'll have to let go of something. Hopefully we can find some positivity to make that space and to make that commitment and to succeed in it, to let go of something that's been holding us back or bothering us, that we've intended to do for a long time. But alrighty, that's all the electional opportunities I have to share with you for our Sagittarius New Moon. We will definitely have some more interesting opportunities in January. There are a couple that I can think of right now that I'm really excited to share with you all, and I'm hoping that now that Jupiter is direct, and that I know that we have these really neat elections coming that will continue to have some good ones coming up for a while. I know that the past few months have been kind of a downtick in opportunities for us, which is, it's just how it goes sometimes, but it's never super fun. But yeah, so looking forward to January in 2024. And all of the new electional opportunities that will open up to us now that the skies are being a little bit more friendly. And that's gonna, we'll see you again on the Capricorn New Moon, but we'll have something a little bit different in store for our Cancer full moon. So everybody take care, and I will see you then.